Okay.
We are talking with Professor Samir Amin. First question, Professor Amin, can you comment on the current crisis of capitalism? What do you think that further development will be? How long will it last, and what will be the consequences?
Well, the crisis has not started in 2008 with the breakdown of the financial market. The crisis has started in 1971 with the abolition of the conversion of the dollar into gold, and as of the mid-70s, 73, 75, the rates of growth and investment in the imperialist triad, US, Europe and Japan, fell to half of what they had been during the 30 previous years, from 45 to 75. That was the beginning of the long crisis, the second long crisis of capitalism. The second one, not the first one. And capital reacted to that crisis by three measures. Concentration of capital, which happened in the 80s, fast, very fast. Globalization, which took the form of the so-called neoliberal globalization, etc. And financialization. That is, as a result of the concentration of capital, there was a growing imbalance between the global demand and the global supply. And the only escape for capital was to move into financial investments. That is fictitious capital, growth of Wall Street and City of London marketplace and so on. But that could not continue for long. It continued for only 18 years, from 1990, say, with the breakdown of the Soviet system and the new so-called end of history, etc., to the financial crisis of 2008. That was a period which I call Belle Époque, number two, repeating the Belle Époque of a century before. Belle Époque for capital, but with growing inequality, fast growing inequality in the distribution of income everywhere, within the countries and between the countries, and led to where we are now, chaos. So the crisis we are in is only halfway. Now we are moving into a second phase of this long crisis, which I call a phase of chaos, growing chaos.
So what do you think the consequences will be when you say chaos?
I don't know. I'm only making a parallel with the first one. The first long crisis, which started exactly a century before, 873, and which led to a first Belle Époque, 1890 to the First World War, and then moved into what? Into the First World War, the Russian Revolution, the collapse of 29, rise of fascism, Nazism, rise of the Imperial Japan, Second World War, Chinese Revolution, Yugoslav Revolution, Vietnamese Revolution, Bandung, and the liberation of Asia and Africa. These are not small events. So we are moving into a period of major events of that size. It will not be a repetition, of course.
So, can neoliberalism survive the current crisis? Because, for instance, we see in Croatia, but in other countries as well, that they're trying to solve governments are trying to solve the problem of the crisis of neoliberalism by introducing more neoliberal reforms.
Yeah, no, neoliberalism is already dead. I mean, the Belle Époque is neoliberalism. It was 20 years. It's finished. we are not going to go back to it. It's historically impossible that the ruling classes, the oligarchy of oligopolies, will try to restore the system as it was. Yes, of course, this is their only possible strategy. But this is bound to lead to more and more the deepening of the crisis.
And what about the reemergence of some kind of neo-Keynesianism as a possible answer to the crisis?
No, I don't think so, because Keynesianism came, Keynesianism was not successful in the 30s when it was formulated. It was successful as of 45 with the social democracy, which was the result precisely of the change of balance of forces. First major fact, the victory of the Red Army and the destruction, Nazism was destroyed by the Soviet Red Army, not by the Americans. Second, as a result of it, the legitimacy of the communist and of the workers' movements, from the legitimacy of Titoism in Yugoslavia to the legitimacy of the resistance in France, in Italy, led by communists, and that gave to the working classes in the West a legitimacy that they had never had before in history, and compelled capital to make concessions and to make a historical compromise, which was the social democracy of Keynesianism. But we are not in a similar position. We are in a position of defeat of the working classes, not a victory. And therefore, Keynesianism is not on the agenda.
Can you comment on the sort of a revival of Marxism, Marx and socialism due to the crisis?
Precisely because of that, there are no alternatives. I'm saying Tina, yes, there is no alternative but socialism, in the sense that if the people, through their disorganized struggles, defensive and not united, offer to capital to adjust to the conditions, capital will adjust, but through what? At what cost? At the cost of being more destructive for the people, through massive, more commodification of social and human life, including human life, with biogenetics and so on, through the destruction of nations and peoples, not only of Asia, Africa, Latin America on a large scale, but also of Eastern Europe, for instance, which has become already the Latin America of Germany, and through the destruction of nature. Ecology has rediscovered that. And therefore, the only alternative is to move towards, I call them revolutionary advances, not revolutions which solve all problems within 3 days, but revolutionary advances which prepare the conditions for further revolutionary advances towards socialism.